A reading from Luke 15, 1-3, and then 11-32. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. The parable of the lost son. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed his pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am, starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father, and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against you. I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the elder son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitute comes home, you kill the fatted calf?' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" Today's gospel reading, the parable of the prodigal son, is probably one of the most famous of all of the parables told by Jesus in the Gospels. It is so familiar that it is easy to forget the importance of its meaning, a meaning that I think has a special relevance to our church. The story is prompted by the muttered complaints of the Pharisees. You see, Jesus is preaching to the sinners and the tax collectors, and the Pharisees are offended. Being Pharisees, they can't keep it to themselves. They are so scandalized, in fact, that they say out loud while Jesus is speaking, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." They can't believe the people with whom Jesus is socializing. I have always found this view of the Pharisees both troubling and typical of them. They are scandalized by the idea that someone as holy as Jesus would want to be around people who are thought of as sinners. And of course, we here know that these are precisely the people Jesus is trying to reach. So Jesus, in reaction to this murmuring, tells 3 parables in a row. The first is about a shepherd with 100 sheep. One of those sheep goes missing, and so he leaves the other 99 to search for it and carry it home on his shoulders. When he gets home, he calls his neighbors to come and rejoice with him, for the lost sheep has been found. Then Jesus tells another parable about a woman who has 10 gold coins and loses one. She's just sick that she has lost this gold coin. She lights a lamp and sweeps her entire house until she has found it. And when she does, she calls her neighbors to rejoice and share in her joy about the recovery of her lost coin. The third in this trio of parables is the one entitled the Prodigal Son, or the wasteful or reckless son. One of the strengths of this story is its understanding of human nature. Many of us here have been the young son, eager to go out on our own, not wanting to listen to the advice of others, ready to get out there and party. Many of the young people I know have adopted the phrase YOLO, or you only live once. And this seems to be the philosophy of this young man. During this time period, it would have been customary for the younger son to receive a third of his father's estate upon the event of his father dying, and this is apparently what the father gives him. I think sometimes we forget what an extraordinary gesture this was on the father's part. He doesn't deny his son. He doesn't say, hey, you're crazy. Wait till I'm gone at least. The father is generous and compassionate and willing to allow his son to make what he surely knows is a huge mistake. He gives his son free will. The father allows his son to make his mistakes. And what mistakes the younger son makes. He squanders his inheritance on wild living and ends up feeding pigs for a living and envying even the pigs their food. You only live once has become you can only party for so long. He is tired and regrets the mistakes he has made. He returns to his father and says, Father, I have sinned against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. He admits, confesses, if you will, his sin. Can you imagine how hard it must have been for him to go back? To swallow his pride and admit to his father that he was wrong? And perhaps worst of all, to face up to Big Brother? Big Brother. The guy who did everything right. The guy who stayed behind. The guy who did what was expected of him. Can you imagine what it must have been like to see your no account, no good brother treated like a king? For what? For failing? For disrespecting his father and wasting the family inheritance? And now your dad is killing the fatted calf for this guy so he can have steak? And you've been eating bologna sandwiches for years? Wow, that would be tough, right? How do you swallow that? It doesn't seem to be very fair, does it? And Big Brother isn't shy about saying so. He doesn't want to go to the party. He doesn't want to join in the celebration. His anger is perfectly understandable. But Big Brother has a lesson to learn also. You see, the eldest son has done everything he thought he was supposed to. He is like the Pharisees, fulfilling the letter of the law, but not understanding its spirit. He cannot share in his father's joy because he has allowed his heart to become hardened with bitterness and self-righteousness. He has forgotten that grace and forgiveness are gifts which his Father and God, our Father, can distribute at will. The eldest son is just as lost as the youngest. Interestingly, the parable ends before we know if the oldest son joins the party. So really, this parable is directed at two sorts of people. Not only do we learn about the prodigal son who wastes what his father has given him, but we also learn about the obedient son who follows the rules but resents sharing his father's love. How many times have we heard about churches and Christians who feel as if they alone have the magic formula for obtaining God's love? How many churches here in Harlingen would turn away people they don't think are living the way they think they should? How many people think that they have earned the right to condemn and judge others? You have to love the father in this story. He knows the mistake his younger son is making, just as God knows the mistakes we make. He is bountiful in his gifts, even though he knows they will be wasted. And when the son is broken and defeated, just as we are all too often broken and defeated, he is there. Not to say, I told you so. Not to say, you have to prove yourself to me. Not to say, why can't you be more like your brother? He is there with joy. He wants to celebrate. He wants to welcome us home. I think many of us here can identify with one or the other of the two sons. We may have been the prodigal son or daughter, or we may have been the rule-following child thinking we are earning some sort of credits towards a goal that really cost us nothing. You see, the lesson here is about the extravagant, the never-diminishing capacity of God's love. As our Father, He loves all of His children, and it doesn't matter where in our journey through life we turn to Him. He is always there, and the gift He gives us is a gift He alone can give. Who are any of us to begrudge that gift to anyone else? Who are we to judge? Our God is not just a creator. Our God is a home unto Himself, a refuge that is always open to us. The door is always open, and there is no guard to stop us at the gate. Too many churches and families forget that. Some of us are prodigal children by our own choice, but some of us are told to leave the home and those who should love us through no fault of our own. And that is the importance of places like Mount Calvary. God's love will always provide a home, and maybe that is why Mount Calvary exists. It is a reminder that when we return to God, we return to joy and family. It is a reminder that God's grace is a gift freely given, not earned like airplane miles on a credit card. It is a reminder to never give up on those who are lost, and that God's love is boundless. It is a reminder that it is never too late. And finally, it is a reminder that when anyone walks through that door, it is an occasion for joy, because it means that a lost sheep has been returned, a gold coin has been found, and a child has come home. Thank you.